Group 6 in Animal Science and Society 67, Ethan Kolb and Nick Lara on the argument for allowing GMOs in animal/feed on December 3rd, 2019. The history and background of GMOs. GMO stands for Genetically Modified Organism. In simple terms, to get a GMO, you transfer a specific genetic trait from one organism to another. The birth of modern GMOs is in 1973. Herbert Boyle and Stanley Cohen worked together and successfully engineered a genetically modified organism. This organism was simple bacteria. They transferred one gene that encodes antibiotic resistance from one strand to another, giving it the same resistance to that recipient. A year later, in 1974, Rudolf Jensen and Beatrice Mendez utilized the same procedure, but in animals this time, introducing foreign DNA into mouse embryos. 1 year after that, the Islamic Conference took place. At this conference, scientists, lawyers, and government officials debated the safety of genetically engineered experiments. It lasted for 3 days, and by the conclusion, there were guidelines put in place, but those guidelines were fluid enough to be influenced by further knowledge as the scientific community advanced. The next notable advancement in the field of GMOs was the first human medication produced by a GMO. Today we call it insulin, and it's used by diabetics all over the world. GMOs made their way into food as well. In 1987, intensive health and environmental testing began for Calgente's Flavor Saver tomato. In 1992, it became the first food crop to be approved for commercial production by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. After tomatoes, other GMO crops such as corn, soybeans, and rice were tested and approved for commercial use as well, with benefits like resistance to herbicides and even increased nutritional value. Golden rice was developed in 2000 to combat vitamin A deficiency. This is a brief overview of the history behind a GMO and how it came to be.
Now, how are GMOs used? Well, GMOs are used in many different ways in life. GMOs are used to advance the quantity of crop yields, to produce more nutritious plants, and to produce crops and animals that are more protected against diseases. According to the Citable by Nature education, they say that benefits of GMOs in agriculture are increased crop yield, enhanced nutritional composition, and resistance against pests and diseases. So, in furthering this, the National Library of Medicine also says something very similar, where applications for genetic engineering are improving animal productivity, food quality, and disease resistance, as well as environmental sustainability. So therefore, these plants and animals that are being genetically modified are actually used productively. And if you look to the right here on the graph, it shows that biotechnologically engineered GMO plants are much more produced than openly pollinated plants. Now, what are some current events in the world of GMOs today? Well, currently, GMOs are major players in today's agricultural system. According to the Genetic Literacy Project, there are 10 different types of GMO crops in the U.S., and 90% of corn, soybean, cotton, canola, and sugar beet acreage in the U.S. are all GMO-based. Now, this is so many plants, and so many of these plants are being increased production because of the GMOs that are being used. And these plants are also being used in a very productive way. These plants are being used for animal feed. According to the International Social Security Association, at least 65 million metric tons of genetically modified corn grains are being used in livestock diets annually. Therefore, these products that are being genetically modified in great tons are being used to feed the many animals or being used to feed the many animals that we have today. Genetic engineering has also successfully been used in many types of farm animals and domestic animals alike. Currently, there are many animals that have been safely genetically engineered. According to the Biotechnology Innovation Organization, cattle, pigs, goats, sheep, dogs, cats, among more animals, have been successfully and safely genetically engineered. one specific example is the EnviroPig, which has, through genetic engineering, been able to emit 30 to 60% less phosphorus than traditionally fed pigs. Therefore, this lessens the impact on the environment. Now, there are also sociological and cultural important things about GMOs as well. GMOs can protect plants against environmental hardships such as snow and frost and drought. According to the Citable by Nature, advances have been made in developing plants that can tolerate drought, frost, salt, and other environmental stressors, allowing plants to grow in environments that they may not have been able to thrive in before. GMOs have been able to, GMOs have allowed humans to produce more amounts of food using the least amount of land as well. This is done by increasing the resistance of plants, as said before. By increasing the resistance of plants through diseases and environmental changes, this can stop famine. Millions of people have died over the years through famine. This includes the Great Famine in Ireland and more currently, the Southern Sudan famine. Now, with all these new resistances and environmental helps, a desert environment may be able to grow certain plants that it was not able to grow before, therefore decreasing the amount of famine in the world. So therefore, genetically modifying both plants and animals can limit the chance that famine has in this world. There are also many ethical aspects to using GMOs as well. According to the ISAAA, there are no significant hazards linked with GMO plants or animals who eat GMO products. And GMO plants have very small compositional differences, and very little biological differences as well, according to the biology of growing animals. Now, this is a very different thought of many people, because many people think that GMOs are harmful for the environment, for the production of plants, for the development of animals and humans alike. However, according to the quote by the ISAAA, there aren't any significant hazards even linked with GMOs. Furthering this, the FDA tests all genetically engineered products before they even go out to market, and they make sure that all genetically engineered plants must meet the same requirements that traditionally bred plants have. And they have even set up a voluntary consulting process with the developers of these engineered plants. Therefore, the FDA wants to ensure that these new genetically modified plants are healthy, able to be eaten, and have no lasting side effects towards humans and animals alike. Now, you may be thinking that genetically modifying animals is unethical. However, that is also a wrong concept that many people have thought over the years. Genetically modifying animals can make them even more resistant to diseases. According to the Biotechnology Innovation Organization, genetically engineering animals offer solutions for improving public health and enhancing the quality of life for everybody. They even further say that this could advance human health as well as optimizing the animal health and welfare. Keyword "and welfare" is there. Therefore, animals are being helped as well with humans. So if everyone is benefiting from this process, then what is the major downfall of using GMOs? Both animals and plants and humans all have a better lifestyle, welfare, and overall quality with GMOs being used.
How GMOs affect the environment. There are 3 different ways that can be broken down. One is soil, air, and water. Going into soil, herbicide-tolerant genetically modified crops enable farmers to till and turn over and break up the soil less often, and this is known as conservation tillage. Weeds could be sprayed and left in the field to protect soil, and then the incoming crop is planted directly over the leftover organic material without turning over the soil. Less tilling means less erosion, and that enables us to increase the organic matter in the soil. And if we did that, then in 1% of that amounts to what flows over Niagara Falls in 150 days. GMOs are part of sustainable farming that preserves topsoil, preventing erosion and desertification. Going into how it affects the air, less tilling thanks to genetically modified herbicide-tolerant crops also means that farmers spend less time on their tractors, using less fuel and reducing carbon emissions. Conservation tillage enabled by genetically modified crops has reduced greenhouse gases on farms globally and can help farmers adapt to mitigate climate change. In 2016, 64.9 billion pounds of atmospheric carbon dioxide emissions were produced by conservation tillage and decreased fuel that made possible by genetically modified crops. Going into water, clean and available sources of water are crucial for farmers and successful agricultural production. Drought and water scarcity, which according to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has been steadily rising since the 1970s, is especially challenging for farmers. Genetically modified crops can reduce the impact of drought on crops and support cleaner waterways. Studies have shown that drought-tolerant genetically modified corn reduces transpiration by 17.5% under stressed conditions, which allows better moisture retention and availability through droughts without additional irrigation. So as far as why we're for it and what's good about it, as previously stated, there are shown that there's no evidence of significantly altered nutritional composition, detritus effects, or occurrence of transgenic DNA or protein in animals derived from animal-fed GMO or GM feed products. Animals perform in a comparable manner when fed biotech feed ingredients as compared to conventional products. Feeding of GM crops has not shown any negative effects of feed intake, whole tract digestibility, or animal productivity in studies with chickens, pigs, sheep, beef cattle, and dairy cows. Scientific studies have also demonstrated that transgenic DNA or protein expressed in GMO crops are not detectable in the raw food derived from animals fed with transgenic crops. Moreover, studies have shown that enlisting and feed processing results in DNA fragmentation. Based on the safety analysis required for GM crops, consumption of milk, meat, and eggs derived from farm animals fed with transgenic crops could be considered as safe as traditional counterparts. So what is the downfall, or if there isn't any difference in the product of the animal and no harm is done to the animal or to the people who consume these GM animal feed products? Why is it important? Why does it matter? Informed opinion on the topic. Ethan and I both seem to come to the same decision about GMOs and animals and animal feed. That decision is that we stand by it. After researching this topic extensively, there are numerous benefits and minimal, at best, risk factors. Overall, moving towards a higher population, GMOs are vital to maintaining our society.
GMOs are important for the development of our future. As stated before, many of the GMOs don't even really affect the health of our animals and ourselves. Therefore, we really need them to continue the overproduction of the human race. Currently, GMOs are an important factor in the production of the U.S. agricultural system and have a lot of impact on how we feed our animals. Therefore, if we want to continue this production, we really need to continue the usage of GMOs, developing GMOs, and making more productive ways of GMO and genetically engineered animals and products.
And to keep up with the population fact that was said earlier, by 2050 the population is supposed to be 9.7 billion. That's 3 billion more than we have. GMOs are vital to maintaining and just plain keep up with numbers. And hopefully one day everyone can be fed, ending world hunger.
Now, with all these facts presented, I hope that we have informed you on our topic, and here's our Works Cited page that shows the many different websites we use to prove that GMOs are a productive use of our time and society.